Hi, it's Dr. Taylor from HealthWorks. And for those of you that have been doing the 21-day purification program, it's coming to a close. So with everything that you've accomplished thus far, what are you going to do next to keep up with the healing process? Some of you may have some more weight you would like to lose, maybe some further inflammation you'd like to deal with. So there's certain things that were taken out of your diet during these last 3 weeks, like wheat, soy, legumes, beans, as well as grains, specifically wheat and corn, things like that, and also eggs and dairy. So how do you reintroduce these things? Because part of the 21-day purification program is uniquely designed to determine whether if any of these highly allergenic foods are causing you to become inflamed. So when you add things back in, usually what I've done in the past, now I've done this 6, 7, 8 times, and what have I found is that I always like to add back in the one thing that I've missed the most. For me, it's dairy, cheese in particular. That's probably the one thing that I miss the most. So if that's you, or if maybe you've missed, your beans or your nuts or even eggs in the morning for your wonderful breakfast, then add that back in first. So it is completely up to you. The one thing that we do recommend that you do not add back in is soy, unless it's fermented, and that's specifically fermented. So we're talking about miso, tempeh, natto. Those are fermented types of soy, which are very helpful and beneficial to the body. However, soy really isn't a health food. It's very high in phytoestrogens. It's been linked to increasing your risk of certain estrogenic cancers like cervical cancer, breast cancer, and even things like rectal cancer as well. So we want to make sure to not add those back into our diet. However, the other things you may not have an issue with. And things like beans and nuts and dairy can even be a part of a very healthy diet. But everybody's different, so you definitely want to be sure that you're adding these things back in correctly. So how do you do it? So in my world, cheese is something that I really love. So I always try and add that back in next. So if you have a lot of sinus issues or anything like that, then maybe dairy could be a big trigger for you. So adding back raw dairy may be more beneficial to you than adding back in, say, your regular pasteurized dairy. So if you're interested in finding out a wonderful source for excellent raw dairy products, let us know and we'll give you our contact. But if that's not really an issue for you, then what you want to do is you want to add back in a new food every, say, 3 to 5 days. That usually will give you a great indication as to what may be triggering an inflammatory response, or it could be, a bowel issue, it could be, any sort of digestive troubles in the tummy, or even things like headaches you want to look out for. Headaches, achiness. So any change that, from how great you feel right now to when you add that food back in, it's very important to note those things. You may even want to write like a journal or a diary to go over it so you can remember these things. So for most people, 3 days is usually sufficient, and then you can add in the next thing that you've missed the most, say eggs for breakfast in the morning. So I think that's really important to notate everything. So just write a list, you can even put it down on a sheet of paper as to how you're going to add these foods back in so you can note any changes that you've made. This is an excellent way to determine what foods may be triggering some inflammatory responses and bring back some of the symptoms that you've let go of over the past three weeks. If, for instance, you think you're like, say, for gluten, for instance, with wheat products, you may want to go an entire week, 5 days to 7 days, to see if there's any responses that are unfavorable towards a certain food. If you suspect it, I would say that maybe gluten is a big trigger for a lot of people, as well as dairy. So if you suspect that that is an issue for you, even just a little bit of a suspicion, I would go every 5 to 7 days before you introduce another food group, if you will. So dairy would include milk, yogurt, cheese, anything in that group. And you can add that back in and you can see whether that is going to be an issue for you. I know this has been an absolutely wonderful journey for the majority of you. And what we would like to hear from you is we want to hear your feedback. We want to know what experiences that you've had over the past 3 weeks. The hard stuff as well as all of the celebration that we need to have together as a group. We've gone through this, and I really believe that this is an incredible journey for a lot of people. We highly recommend, if this is your first time to do the purification program, to do it again in 6 months. And then after that, once a year is sufficient, depending on, your individual preferences and what you would like to do. But thank you so much for going along with this journey with us. And we can't wait to hear about your experiences. And good luck. If you have any other questions about how to reintroduce those foods, remember, the wheat, legumes, dairy, soy, don't add back in, as well as the eggs. You want to add back those in between every 3 and 7 days, depending on your suspicions. So take care, everyone, and congratulations on finishing the purification program.